Hi there, Chimbas. Your good friend Pattern here again, and this time I've been contracted by the good folks of the Night City Department of Tourism to give you a glimpse into a bustling metropolis that's been culturally appropriated to resemble a post-Fallout Epcot Center. A place where opportunity and free expression are paramount to the laws of physics, and silly notions like law and order are merely suggestions and can be reconciled by quickly changing genitalia. Yes, here in Night City, one's worth is measured by the acquisition of trust in autonomous vehicle services and how many RGB-loaded Razor products you can stuff into your meat suit. If this sounds like the place for you, then settle back, jack on in, and we'll crank this braindance review to 11 for Cyberpunk 2077.
Sons of bitches!
Before all the chrome and ladies dancing around in champagne tubes, life on Earth wasn't much different than how we live today, in that everything kinda sucked but was tolerable by sharing your buddy's Netflix account. My producers from the Department of Tourism have insisted that I develop a deep understanding of the extremely rich and storied history of this franchise, but it was their mistake to hire someone who invested every spending point into attention deficit upgrades at an early age. And seeing how the lore of this game dates over 100 years, my augments are literally incapable of performing such extensive research, but I'm fairly sure I can give an accurate surmisal of the events nonetheless. In Cyberpunk's 20th century, it was a time of war and nuclear proliferation, and much like our own, gave rise to nations becoming powerful enough to subsidize corporations to strip that power away from them, much like our own. It was during this time that Saburo Arasaka assumed control of what would become the largest megacorp in history, Arasaka Industries. As I can imagine, he no longer wanted to deal with a dying pizza franchise. Around this time, the Deep State said, "Hey guys, what if we ruin everything for everyone? You know, as a goof." Toward the end of the 20th century, Coronado, which later would become Night City, was founded in Northern California shortly after the world stock market collapse, causing LA to look like an even larger pile of crap. But it wouldn't matter because God had become so pissed at that point, he decided to give most of it the Atlantis experience soon after. The 21st century led the way to rapidly evolving technologies, which made life for millions far more effortless by ending them in a myriad of ways that only a creature as clever as man could accomplish. This is also a period where many said, "Fuck it, I'm gonna live on the moon, free of oppression." People were also now free to stop arguing about whether to build an AMD or Nvidia PC, and could now argue which company would make up the majority of their limbs. Although there were many conflicts, wars, and uprisings leading up to 2077, none may be as important to the success of this review as talking about the Night City Holocaust, or Bill and Ted's Nuclear Adventure in 2023. Enlisted for his services as a drug-addled man with a beard, Johnny Steelio Man was a prime choice to carry out a devastating attack on Arasaka HQ because his former girlfriend was about to have her intellectual property stolen and repurposed as Cortana. Fearing this, Master Chief went full-on Doom Guy and became the legendary Atom Smasher, who then proceeded to beat the living shit out of him. However, Arasaka were not successful in stopping the Silverhand and pals from leveling most of Night City, which would take over a decade for the developers of CDPR to get to a somewhat functional state. When the city rose like a phoenix from the ashes, it was met by criticism from its citizens for having massive technical issues like poor frame rates and bugs, which understandably confused the masses when vehicles would suddenly rain down on them, which brings us some years later to your role on these cyber streets. The setup for the first act of the game is decided by one of 3 starting factions. You can choose to be a broke-ass nomad, a paperless street kid, or a shining example of corporate magnificence, but I strongly suggest Corpo since their team breaks down barriers by apparently having unisex vomitoriums. After you pick your faction, character creation lets you throw pronouns to the wind by giving you the full multi-class experience in whatever combination of hardware down there. Each faction gives you dialogue options specific to their represented lunch table, but the common denominator is your good buddy, Jackie Cena. Jackie's your wisecracking, goofy but lovable sidekick who mixes Latin flair with the constant reminder that even here in the future, we are unable to move past the man bun. Your eye in the Skynet, T-Bug, chimes in occasionally to remind you that remedial combinations of numbers can grant you access to other folks' apartments. After a montage of Night City shenanigans by you and Jack, you'll be locked to one section of the city, giving you a small taste of the variety of jobbers you'll complete after the prologue. Race some roaches, meet a pirate, meet a fatter pirate, avoid Debbie Rumsfeld, and you'll find yourself in Lady 4chan's basement hanging out with a prostitute. But hey, let's not forget that prostitutes made up a good chunk of Jesus's crew, so don't judge her until about halfway through Act 2. Due to poor air quality in the city, causing stunted brain development, your trio sets out on their master heist to infiltrate and steal a PlayStation 12 from Arasoni HQ, only to realize they may have accidentally made a whoopsie when you witness Subaru Arasaka's murder at the hands of his son. Rest in peace, Jackie. You may be gone, but I'll never forget you. Oh hi, who is this now? Act 2 begins after the good old double cross by Deshawn, and the double cross by your new pal Goro, who unfortunately in this game only has 2 arms, unlike his cooler self in Mortal Kombat. You realize quickly that maybe illegally downloading a bootleg copy of The Matrix and then getting shot in the face may not have been the flex you thought it was, and for the rest of the game have Johnny Silverhand, legendary rocker and all-around master of edgelords, riding shotgun in your noggin. Johnny pops up from time to time to help V out on their cybernetic Scooby-Doo adventures and to call them a pussy.
Well, aren't you the king of fuck-ups?
It's kind of like always being connected to an open mic Call of Duty lobby. You learn that Johnny not only suffered a stone-cold stunner beatdown that night at Arasaka HQ, but that they've also got a kick-ass LAN party going on to store the engrams of the dead in a new device known as Mikoshi. At first, the relationship between V and Johnny borders on domestic abuse, but you'll have options along the way to help out the troubled dirtball go from psycho drug addict who enjoys the occasional terrorism to finally acknowledging that deodorant might not be such a bad thing, and raising his spirits by helping a former bandmate incinerate a Team J-Pop's musical equipment. Remember how I said earlier to avoid Madeline Stout? Well, I was very wrong, and I'll admit it, because there's a mission with her that you probably don't want to avoid, seeing as how it rewards you with my new favorite weapon from any video game I've ever played. And fortunately it comes with batteries preloaded. Still though, V is dying thanks to Arasaka's LimeWire technology, and there's no time to waste being manipulated by every faction that can help. Unless you want to waste time, which is also an option, and there's no shortage of distractions to keep you busy. The main story bounces around a bit between a few key factions, occasionally hitting you with a choose-your-own-adventure style that basically dumps you into the same scenario regardless of who you call daddy. One such choice presented itself when, after spending the day at the local mall for the Voodoo Boys, I was confronted with the option to either sell out my squad or help the man continue their nefarious meddling in ethnic communities. Better believe I ain't no snitch though, to which my loyalty was rewarded with an attempt to install Windows Millennium Edition into my frontal cortex. V is anything but a bitch though, and instead of crying about their new buddy's hazing tactics, they take it on the chin and head back to Voodoo HQ to update to Windows XP and visit the dark web. I'll admit, during this review I got a little obsessed with the lore, and for as much as Captain Morgan Blackhand is mentioned at the start of the game, he becomes essentially non-existent or mentioned later, to a sad lack thereof during Johnny's memory mission where you raid Arasaka. But with modern technology, we can recreate how Blackhand's fight with Smasher must have looked, as exampled here with realistic renders of the epic confrontation. However, it is explained by Cortana that Engram Johnny's memories, much like my memories of summer camp, are repressed and only represent the versions of his past as he sees them, which gives the devs ample room and explanation to retcon and change whatever they like, and I applaud them for it. I can think of no smarter move than gaslighting a player base into believing simple omissions were well-crafted narrative elements, and if it so happens that the smasher that we fight at the end is just a copy or something, I'd actually be okay with this, considering I had a harder time beating a literal train in Goddess of Victory Nike. Local food snob Goro devises a plan to kidnap the princess of Arasega to learn the truth about the early discontinuation of the Dreamcast, and to a lesser extent, her brother Yorinobu's assassination of their father, which, as you may have guessed by now, goes off without a hitch and totally according to plan. If you're getting the impression that V may be an actual moron, incapable of successfully completing any mission without an 11th hour save, you'd most likely be correct, but it's their naive innocence and the pals you've made that are always there to get you through this life by inadvertently sacrificing their own. During the final mission, V is presented with several choices on how to go about bringing down Mikoshi, and further exploration into other character storylines opens up different ending routes. The real MVP in this scenario, though, is Johnny's ex, and database admin of Earth, Alt Cunningham, who doesn't make you wait for results or fuck around. This was probably the coolest and most realistically terrifying depiction of advanced AI I've ever seen. She simply types "everyone dead" into ChatGPT and unstably diffuses the life out of everything around you. The ending depends on what route V chooses, whether helping Hanako, setting off into the sunset with Cassidy, or letting Johnny take the wheel. At least you'll know you've chose wrong. NPCs. Aside from the main cast, this game has some great NPCs, like Flaming Crotch Guy, and a clown with a literal freaking grenade for a nose. V can choose to screw over one of Johnny's bandmates, either Henry or Denny, by self-inserting a major decision upon meeting both for the very first time. As female V, you can shack up with Judy Brainhub Alvarez, or River Ward after his mission to liberate his nephew from Michael Jackson's ranch. As male V, do cool boat stuff with Johnny's bud Carey, or let Pan Am jack you on in a tank. However, Pan Am is the only romance option here that comes with their own alternate ending, and as I mentioned earlier, gets you one step closer to the mustachioed cowboy Cassidy, whose love we dare not speak of. Some notable fixers that hand out side gigs include the Turtle Queen Wakako, Regina George, who asks you to hunt down literal psychopaths, then reprimands you for killing them, Padre Ibarra, who has disgusting liver spots, and Mr. Hands, who, despite offering the cooler jobs in the game, I would strongly urge not to research online due to horrifying equestrian antics. Johnny's old flame Rogue is a grizzled veteran of the criminal underworld who, despite being ghosted at every opportunity, still agrees to help V and Johnny after breaking into a local drive-in. Crazy kids. Although her role is minor, a favorite of mine was Lizzie Wizzy, a true sociopath that in my opinion embodies the total package of Night City virtues. She's tough as steel because her body is encased in it, so after learning about her boyfriend's plot to re-alter her memories, she re-alters his larynx, and after a brief moment of internal strife, continues living her best life. She even sees it as a career move, and to that I say, you go girlbot. Locations. As I mentioned earlier, the city is divided into districts, representative of their heritage that makes up the predominance of their affiliated gangs. Japantown has used game stores and earthly delights, but it's the only place you can get your freak on for less than the price of a hamburger. The starting area and northern districts of Night City are a mixed bag of business, industrial, and gang turf, where you can find the cheerful and clinically stable members of Maelstrom, a gang most well known for their charity work and passion for arts and literature. Jackie's muchachos, the Valentinos, stick to the southern end of Haywood, a district not too far from the interior corporate center of Night City, famous for its skyscrapers and regular use of police brutality. Further south is the lovely beaches of Pacifica, where the Voodoo Boys hold secretive meetings on how best to meal prep for the upcoming weeks, while also turning subway systems into internet cafes. Missions. Missions can feel repetitive at times. Fixers often repeat tasks like leaking nudes from a laptop that is almost guaranteed to be sitting out in the top right corner of a gang's hideout. However, there are some missions that are more selective about the give it upgrade path you've chosen. For example, if you chose the path of the nerd and put everything into getting Security Plus certified, odds are you'll step into the Beat the Brat missions and get a beatdown followed by swirlies until you reroll and go from Steve Urkel to Stefan, and show your opponents what epic gorilla arms paired with maxed out street brawler stats can do to a human face. To obtain Johnny's secret ending, you must have a 70 in his friendship scale, done so by helping him tie up loose ends from beyond the grave and rocking out with his buddies. These missions are pretty good, and for every repetitive side quest, can help break the monotony up. However, they get a bit story heavy, so if you're more about instant gratification, I would suggest going after Cyber Psychos. There are around 16 in total. They provide a decent challenge and are a steady source of Cole's cash, and if you spare a few, Regina even takes it upon herself to hook you up with some new trousers. Customization. Like any good JRPG, Cyberpunk demands that before starting the game you already have an intimate familiarity of the given branch paths that make up your build over time. Black Mage is a favorite of mine, as big crit makes Faraga do overstacking damage, and paired with Mana Font and spreadable aids can wipe an entire room clean in moments. If ninja is more your thing, stacks of cold blood will let you zip around quickly, paired with optical camo to surprise your enemies when you suddenly appear to interrupt their mundane guard duty and eviscerate them with freakish blade arms. You can also stand the Edge Runners build and go full Martinez by snagging the Sandevistan Mark IV in Gorilla Arms, placing all your points in fisticuffs and health regen to slow time and give your enemies a full buffet of punchies before they even know what hit them. Your character may be dumb as a post with this build, but it is hilarious as it occasionally kills an enemy so fast they'll blow through 2 or 3 lines of dialogue before even hitting the ground. A welcomed newer feature is found in outfits by giving you the choice to show off that sweet anime flair without being bound to the clothes you're using as armor. Clothing stores present a great opportunity to show your style, and when your street cred increases, so will the options at every hot topic in the city. While you're free to choose whatever edgy edge runner outfit you desire, nothing adds insult to injury quite like watching your professionally trained and armored Militech buddies get the snot beat out of them by a cheerful V rocking booty shorts and a Supreme beanie. In conclusion, I'll be honest. I didn't play the game when it first came out, or even really until everything got smoothed over, so I can't make many arguments about the state of how things were, but the state of play at the time of this review is gorgeous, polished, and mostly bug-free. My only real gripes with the game are level pacing and initial engagement. The difficulty at the start is fair, especially at higher difficulties, but with a few upgrades starts feeling too easy to abuse, and rarely did I end up replaying missions because most are so short that if you fail once, you'll know exactly what to exploit the second time around. Difficulty is also measured in enemy health and less XP, so choosing a pure intelligence build will still let you fly through missions pretty easily, and that's where a greater number of enemies could have added to the challenge. The narrative design creates an immersive experience that does a good job of telling the story and making characters memorable, but far too often it felt like you were listening to an entire TED Talk on Mayor Stockholm's wall invaders before finally getting a bit of action that lasts for about 60 seconds before turning you back into Detective V. I didn't go into this expecting Call of Duty level action sequences, but most if not all of them felt like they were cut short or could have at least had another section of baddies to spread my brain aids to. Despite all that, if you played this at launch or want an incredibly deep world to become hyper fixated on, myself and the board of tourism directors definitely recommend Cyberpunk. A lot of work has clearly gone into making the game better and doles out the type of freedom to do whatever you want that makes a game fun. I'd give Cyberpunk 8 graffitis out of however many I have left to do, because that mission was super boring and I'd rather run around satisfying my lust to watch entire swarms of NCPD scanner enemies simultaneously collapse due to mind-induced heat exhaustion. As a friendly commenter pointed out in my last video, I should be more confident when I suggest you, the viewer, subscribe. So instead of suggesting, I've hired my good pal Spider Murphy to breach your PC and will not release those videos in the hidden folder on the condition that you sub to the channel.
Wait, what do you mean Spider's dead?
Oh, well, never mind then. I guess your secrets are safe. So rather accept this epilogue montage to sweeten the pot. And as always, thanks for watching. I have a feeling the Night City Department of Tourism will soon send assassin squads to my house, so stay tuned for encrypted broadcasts on future videos.